Hello, my name is Andrea Richardson, and I am a student of Baker University in the MSSL 5121 class Inquiry and Research under the direction of Dr. Jamie Sadish. The study that I did for my action research project was how implementing student-led conferences as opposed to traditional parent-teacher conferences impacted parental attendance and teacher perceptions at Prairie View High School. The abstract for this study states, the purpose of this study was to determine if implementing student-led conferences as opposed to traditional parent-teacher conferences increased parental attendance and improved teacher perceptions of conferences. To determine parental attendance and teacher perceptions of conferences, attendance data from the 2018 spring conferences, which were conducted in contemporary student-led conference format, were compared with attendance data from the 2018 fall conferences, which were conducted in the traditional parent-teacher format. Surveys were sent to and completed by a control group of 6 teachers who took part in both conferences. The results of this study indicated that implementing student-led conferences produced significantly greater parental attendance than traditional parent-teacher conferences, and teacher perceptions of the student-led conferences as opposed to traditional parent-teacher conferences were marginally more positive, but overall inconclusive. In an ever-changing world, teachers are tasked with preparing students for the unknown. Technology continues to advance each day, and although the advances in technology have provided efficient and consistent communication between parents of students and teachers, it has also created a void for face-to-face contact from parent to teacher. As grades and educational information has become more easily exchanged from teachers directly to parents via the internet, parents are taking a less active role in interacting with teachers in the schools. And it also seems that students are taking a less active role in their own education. As more demands are placed on teachers, parent and teacher conferences seem to be a thing of the past, and teachers' perceptions of traditional conferences seem to be negative. 2 questions surfaced. 1. Would student-led conferences encourage greater parental attendance at conferences? And 2, would teacher perceptions of conferences improve with the new method of conferences as an option? In the study, a one-group pre-test, post-test research design was employed to answer these questions as they pertain to conference styles at Prairie View High School. The goal of this study was to determine which conference style, traditional parent-teacher conferences or student-led, would produce greater attendance of student parents and produce greater overall teacher satisfaction. In a multiple mediational analysis of parent involvement and its impact on student achievement, it was consistently found that parental involvement positively impacts student achievement. More specifically, it was shown that the more involved a parent has direct correlations to the academic success of that student. A parent who is more actively involved in their children's education will have greater academic performance than a child of a parent who is involved at a lesser degree. This is according to the research of Topar, Keene, Shelton, and Calkins done in 2010. Although there are many ways for parents to be actively involved in a child's learning, the study conducted by these people also suggests that the more positive interactions a parent has within the walls of the school, the more positive the student's perception of school, and therefore academic performance is more positive as well. Perceived cognitive competence and student-teacher relationships appear to also play major roles according to the research. However, parental involvement emerges as the greatest factor of the 3. According to further research, a growing trend in the desire to have more parental involvement within school walls is student-led conferences. Student-led conferences are a new take on the traditional parent-teacher conference. Rather than parents and teachers meeting to discuss the students and their academic and/or behavioral performance, the student takes an active role in presenting their own take on their academic and behavioral performance. As described in the analysis put together by Wildwood Elementary, student-led conferences allow students to lead and teachers to do very little of the talking. Students share with parents about their performance, goals, and concerns, while the teacher serves as a silent participant or a mediator when clarification is needed. Teachers also tend to like the style of this conference because the student facilitates the conversation and takes the focus. As a result, the students take responsibility for their performance and teachers are no longer the focal point. Additional research studies that were done by Amy Goodman, John Hattie, and Nicole Morelli also shared much of the same conclusions. which led me to this study. The research type used for this study was one group, pre-test, post-test. Since this study began in the spring of the previous school year and was completed in the fall of the current school year, the groups tracked were parents of students in graduating classes 2019, 2020, and 2021. The pre-test served as the student-led conference held in February of 2018, while the post-test served as the traditional parent-teacher conference held in October of 2018. Quantitative data and qualitative data were taken. Quantitative data consisted of attendance of parents at both conferences tracked by the high school secretary and then compared. Qualitative data consisted of a teacher perception survey, where 6 teachers were surveyed. All were considered seasoned teachers of 5 years or more. All participated in both conferences, and the total number of 6 represented about 20% of the teaching staff at Prairie View High School. Each were asked 15 questions of varying types, 10 of which were linear scale questions, 1 was a short essay question, 2 were multiple choice questions, and 2 were checkbox style questions. The quantitative findings of this study suggested that student-led conference, as opposed to traditional parent-teacher conferences, did help to increase parental attendance. In every class analyzed, parental attendance rates at student-led conferences was at least double that of the traditional parent-teacher conferences. There were other variables that could have played a role in the attendance rates. However, with such an increase at 29% or more attendance, it is fair to assume the primary factor, style of conference, was the change-bearing difference. As we look at the qualitative data, you will see the blank survey displayed before you, as well as the data collected from the survey in various tables. The qualitative findings of this study leave much more room for interpretation and distinction of outcomes. When conducting a perception survey, results can be varied based on preference of the individuals completing the study. This was especially true of the small sampling of high school teachers that we used. Due to PVHS having a high turnover of teachers this past summer, it was difficult to find teachers to complete the survey who had been in the district for both sets of conferences. As a result, the sample consisted of 6 teachers versus nearly 20 that are on staff at PVHS. Although the small sample size did not provide the best picture of overall teacher perceptions, it did work to highlight some areas for future direction. Although parental attendance did appear to increase as a result of conducting student-led conferences as opposed to traditional parent-teacher conferences, it is apparent that there are other significant concerns regarding the format of one method over another. Although getting parents in the building may have been one of the focuses of this study, it alone does not give credence to student-led conferences over parent-teacher conferences being the method of choice. Going forward, it may be advantageous for Prairie View High School to consider switching up the conference methods on the school calendar. For instance, moving student-led conferences to the fall and having traditional parent-teacher conferences in the spring. Although this change may not have an effect on parent attendance at conferences, it would rule it out as an attendance indicator. Some factors that were not considered in this study and that could lead to different results were the fact that each conference time also had other school activities taking place at the same time. These scheduling conflicts may have played a larger role during one conference type over another, but that is not definitive. The fact that parents were given specific times to schedule their meeting for student-led conferences and only told to come at their leisure with parent-teacher conferences may have also played a large role in the results. It is also possible that students personally inviting their parents to attend student-led conferences and students attending with them led some parents to feel compelled to attend those evenings, when in the traditional format they would have opted not to attend. Another interesting perspective moving forward would be to survey parents of students to determine how they perceive conferences and determine what would have been deterrents in attendance. It is possible that conferences overall may be a thing of the past due to advances in technology, but based on this study, it can be assumed that a majority of parents still see them as having value and purpose. The results of the teacher perception survey brought about more questions than answers. Although this survey was helpful in highlighting areas of concern or areas for further study, Prairie View High School teacher leadership should consider things to discuss during professional learning communities in order to gain greater clarification on the needs going forward. Some specific items to consider for PLCs might include how effective the time being spent preparing for students to do student-led conferences is, and should communication including meeting face-to-face with parents of students be done only on an as-needed basis, and is communication with parents of students effectively communicated via email, phone calls, and other means, rather than conferences? Aside from a teacher perception survey, it may be interesting to do a student perception survey to determine how students feel about these various conference methods and if they truly are effective and productive from a student stance. In an ever-changing world with technology, it is important for educators to be preparing our students for the world that waits for them outside of the walls of this high school. That being said, with technology being a way of life and educator goals being to prepare students for that life, educational methods and practices should align with the ever-changing technology, and that would include conferences. Please review these references that were used in this study, and thank you very much for your attention.